Oh, yay! Another week of unapologetic women share. Hi, ladies.
Woohoo!
Today we're going to be talking about something that impacts all women. And when the Me Too movement started, it really made us aware of how many women were impacted by childhood sexual abuse or trauma. We really started seeing like numbers that we just could not have imagined. And one thing that I find really interesting, at one time for about 5 years, I was a tour guide in Hollywood. And at the corner of Hollywood and Highland, there is the Hollywood and Highland site. And they had a casting couch up there at the top. And if you've ever been there, you follow this like kind of yellow brick road thing. And there were different quotes from different people who had made it in the business. And you get to the end of this kind of yellow brick road type thing, and there was this big casting couch. And right in front of the casting couch, there was this big message, and it said, "How most of us got here." And one of the things that first of all, that made me so sad when I saw that women actually had to lay on their back to get ahead in the movie business, in any something that means so much to them. But one of the things that filled my heart with joy after the Me Too movement came out and got bigger and bigger and was really prevalent after the Harvey Weinstein trials, they removed that couch. You can't, I've been to Hollywood and Highland, it's not even there anymore.
Yay. Thank
And
heavens.
it's the three of us started talking about this subject, and we realized, all three of us have a background from some kind of childhood trauma or abuse. And this is what we want to share with you today. This is what we want to talk to. Ladies, I'm so honored to be having this conversation with you today.
Me
It's
too.
important. It's important to talk about it.
It is.
Yeah, a lot of women don't feel they have anybody to talk to about it. And quite frankly, I went for my whole, from the time it happened through my whole formative years until I had been married. So I was married at 25. Probably the conversation came up when I was 26, 27, maybe. So it had been, 15 years. I hadn't said it, told a soul,
Mhm.
So a lot of, it would be even more difficult to imagine. And I'm sure this is true that there are women that maybe take the secret to the grave. They don't talk about it to anybody.
Yeah. And it's these secrets that are impacting us. And when we feel that we cannot share this, when there's no one to talk to about it, it's really important that we find our tribe. And that's not necessarily meaning you have to go and talk to people about what happened because you're looking for commiseration, because I certainly did that. When I started talking about it, I thought, oh man, talking about I need people to know. I need people to know. But there's a difference between healing from it through conversation and looking for commiseration,
Right.
Yeah.
having it continually impact your identity and reinforce your identity that this is who you are because of this experience. There's a big difference there. And you, Donna, you were sharing something completely different about Sherry and I were talking that it's not like, well, I'm going to let you share
About what? Wh-
how you had blocked it.
I blocked it, and this is a real emotional thing. So, um, I blocked it for a long, long time. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew that I was never, ever, 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 ever going to get married, and I never hugged my father. I was terrified of him, and there was no safe space in my house. So, I didn't even have an inkling. I had buried it so deep. I was always like this. And people would wonder at my wide eyes. And it was just the terror of just my experience with at home. So I decided before I can even remember that I was never, ever, 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 ever going to get married, period. Boom. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that it started to come out. I mean, some of it was happening, and then I went into some deep work. And then after my brother died, I had found out that my father had started molesting him when he was 5. And I really missed my brother. So a lot of the stuff started coming up, and I got into some really wonderful deep therapy and actually was able to move through it. Fortunately, we didn't do any, we didn't have I didn't do any of the drugs that people do to just numb ourselves out. But it was, what I've thought about was, when stuff like that happens, it's not like, oh, she's going to be fine. It lasts your whole life. I was 71 before I could have a really good relationship, and that's after a lot of therapy. So I think it needs to be addressed, because the guys who were perpetrating it, they've probably had it done to them. But maybe they go to jail for a day or two, or maybe they don't. Maybe they get away with it. I don't know, because I don't know. My father was, I don't know where he was, but we couldn't figure out why he loved Boy Scouts, because he certainly didn't love his kids. So I don't know what that was about. Oh. But first of all, it's made me strong. It's made me understand what goes on a lot for women. Women have been used for a long time, and we've been alienated from our own eros and our own sexuality. And that's our power, women, to be able to enjoy that ourselves and not use it to sell somebody's automobile, or a motorcycle or anything else. They use sex to sell. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's a major star who isn't sexual. She is, that's what she sells, but she's not orgasmic. So what I want to say is we get to heal from all of it. But it's something that I don't think we can numb out, and I think we need to talk about with the intent to heal and come through it and understand, oh my gosh, yes, we can be these powerful, joyful, erotic, wonderful, juicy women who own our sexuality and own our own home and own a safe place where we can live. So that's my experience. That's really kind of my experience about it, and why I feel so passionate about helping to, free the largest unpaid workforce in the world, which is women. But I see that women are being alienated from their own sexual erotic power by trying to be attractive by, I don't know, it's a weird thing, because to be, the difference between sexy and being orgasmic are two different things. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm saying for right now. I don't want to hog the conversation, but it's important. But it's not something that goes away just because we stuff it down and ignore it. It's not something that goes away. We have to honor our love and our power and our juice, and have a parameter where we have a safe place. Next.
And you said something, Udana, about how this is what I took from it. These weren't exactly your words, but what I felt was how protective you felt about your brother and over your brother. And we have this protective instinct in us, I'll say, as women. And sometimes knowing what's happening to yourself is one thing, but when you know that it's happening to someone you love and care for, like a sibling, it can expand that feeling of helplessness, which really
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
And we can beat ourselves
up. Was a guitarist. He was the most brilliant, and I still miss him. And I didn't find out about it. He had told another friend that, yeah, dad started molesting him when he was 5, and I found out afterwards, and then we got into therapy. My older brother and I got into therapy and kind of realized what was had been going on.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I missed him a lot.
And the thing is when we heal from any kind of experience, um, we want that for others because we know that healing ability, and we know the difference between continually being triggered by the trauma and releasing the emotion that
Yeah.
causes the trigger. And then you want that for other people. You just want that. You're like, please just do X, Y, and Z because I want this for you. But everyone has to come to it in their own time. And it can be so frustrating, so heartbreaking when we have loved ones that we are not able to help. And I think when that's another part of the trauma. It's not only what we experience, but it's also what the people we love experience. And I know for me, um, it's like, how do you honor your parents, honor your mother and your father when they are the people you need protected from? And so we grow up with that I don't know, that constant back and forth about, I don't want this to happen, but I want to be a good kid, but I don't want this to happen anymore. But I want, and then you're looking for help and you realize there is no help. And it's that feeling of helplessness. And then when you are watching or learning about it happening to others, you also have that expanded experience and feeling of helplessness. And
And
yeah,
it sets you up for being. I went into therapy with a family therapist, and I got molested by him. And then I finally told my parents, and they just got mad at me, you know? So
yeah,
what happens with all of that? It's the trauma upon trauma upon trauma,
Well,
and then we keep you know, bringing people into our lives who repeat that.
yes.
yeah, it makes it very difficult to find a place of trust when you feel like you have been molested. You've been it's abuse in itself. That's abuse in itself of not being able to trust, someone.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So I always thought
Mm.
home was always like that. I never wanted a home. I never wanted to get married. I never, until I realized, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. And I read something by Bruce Lipton, The Honeymoon Effect, and I went, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be the Lone Ranger. You know, I've had
Yeah.
wonderful men in my life, but I'm not supposed to be the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
I can, so to come to that at this late date, is, but you know what? Life is perfect. We get to learn from what we're doing and just keep growing from where we are.
Yeah.
Uh,
But Donna, what that says to me, and I hope it says to other people listening to this, is that it's never too late.
yeah, that's right.
Never
Exactly.
too late to
Uh,
heal.
Stay
And
healthy, take care of yourself, and it's never too
well,
late. Just keep
but
growing.
also the things that may be trauma that you haven't had the self-confidence, the self-awareness to
Yeah.
to want to share it, to realize it's time to put it down. It's time to realize this was something that was done to you, that you were a victim, to really accept that, and to be, and like, I think it's important that it's not something that then is you take to, as a cross to bear, because
Yeah.
we also have a choice of how we frame it so that we don't keep feeling the anger, that we can have a sense of forgiveness, of realizing whatever it was that was drawing that person that was the abuser. We have to be able to put it down in order to move on with our lives. And I mean, I think it's extra difficult when it's, like you were saying, it's somebody that you love, it's not yourself. It's almost harder, I think, in that, because you do feel so powerless. So
And you feel responsible.
yeah,
And
I know for me, what I want to share about it is that it was an interesting experience that the way that I had an awareness so that I could finally see what it was. Because for me, I was young. It was somebody that it was a family that I was babysitting for, and, adored this family, and my parents didn't protect me. And I did have to forgive them because I was good at selling a picture that wasn't the truth. And they were so busy with managing a new business that they just weren't paying attention. And so, I kind of faked everybody out, which is why no one knew. And, um, and so for me, it was stuck in my body, and I think our bodies are, uh, you can compartmentalize your mind,
Yeah.
but your body, it's there, it's living in your body. And so for me, I was training to be a massage therapist. I was pregnant. So our bodies are even more, you know, there's more of a awareness in our body. We're in our bodies more because there's that maternal instinct to be protective of our baby, of our unborn baby. And so it was that experience of learning, not even having the hands-on work myself, but was, in a group setting where I was learning about working on not sexual parts in a way, but vulnerable parts, the chest, the pubic bone, so kind of in the area, right? And I had this kind of eruption of emotion that came out of me, that came out of nowhere, it seemed. And I just went into another room, threw myself into another room, and started wailing. And that was the beginning of this opening of me realizing what I've been carrying around for years. And at that point, it was many years. I mean, when I had the first conversation with my husband, which was the first time I talked about it, I still didn't really get it. It was that body experience. And so for me, my healing was about me kind of regressing back to, because I missed, and I think this happens if you're a child and then you go through the normal time when you would be developing and understanding, your sexuality, but you've got this abuse that took advantage of you and robbed an innocence of you, which was my experience, then it just skews everything. So I kind of had to go back, and my husband, thank God, was a willing partner in this, in my therapy, which was very much about focusing on the body. It wasn't a lot of the head talking about it. I mean, there was some of that, but most of it was me allowing what had been trapped in my body to be released. And I think it's so important to acknowledge where you're experiencing it so that you can be nurtured and supported in a way that is completely it doesn't look one way. It's the way it comes out for you. And I think the more we experience it, I mean, I think it's like you said, you don't ever get past it completely. It's an experience. It's part of your DNA in a way. And yet
How old were you when it happened?
I think I was 11. So pre-pubescent.
Uh-huh.
I think I was
Yeah.
11. It's a little fuzzy, but I kind of remember the age of the youngest child that I was babysitting, and so I think I was 11. And it went on for years because I thought I felt like I had this special secret. I had a crush on him. I was a kid that had a crush on this man who was paying attention to me. So I didn't see it as abuse. I didn't have a way of framing it at that point. It
Right.
was only
God.
when this happened and the physicality of it came out of me, the wailing, the emotional experience, when that came out of me, that I could then look back and recognize how I was 11-year-old. And I remember so distinctly walking with a friend who happens to be a therapist, and we happened to walk by a family who was, on the sidewalk, and she said, "That's an 11-year-old." And that was very like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
I
this is
opened.
just such a young child. Somehow I saw myself as somebody that was, I could handle it, and I couldn't, and my body knew I couldn't.
Yeah.
How old was he, just out of curiosity?
He was in his 30s. He was, I think I remember him being, yeah, I think he was in his young 30s at that time.
Oh my
You know,
God.
we
So
we have so many questions as children that don't make sense to us, and so we make things up, right? We say, well, this must be the way it is, or this must be because of that. I remember babysitting one night and I was asleep. And when the father came home, he was taking advantage of me there, being asleep, waking me up. And when I told my father, he got so angry and he said, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And I remember thinking, if you know it's wrong for that man to do it to me, why isn't it wrong for you to do it to me? It
Mm.
it makes no sense. As children, we're trying to make sense of life. We're trying to figure out, like, why does this keep happening? But like
Yeah.
you were talking about, Sherry, knowing that it's this energetic energy, everything is energy, and we hold that energy in the body. And when we're able to release it from the body, that negative emotion, it's very freeing. And then people will say, well, how can that happen to children? Because children don't know about that. But children are so intuitive, and we take on the feelings and emotions of those around us. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I could tell. I didn't understand it at the time, but I could tell just by being in physical proximity of my parents what was coming next. I mean,
Mm.
you feel
Sure,
it.
you get
But
very tuned in.
yeah,
It's a survival mechanism, actually, when
yeah,
there's abuse involved. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
You feel it before it happens. And
sure.
you know, um, one of my teachers, when he was telling me, okay, well, your child, you attracted that to you. And I remember feeling so angry because I heard it as it was my fault.
Right.
That's what I heard. And when I really understood the difference between it was my fault and it was something attracted energetically, everything everything like blossomed for me. Everything made so much more sense for me. And I feel that women today who are so involved in being more open and talking about it, whether it's through the Me Too movement or however they're sharing it, women who are no longer going to keep silent. And that doesn't mean you have to do what we're doing, and put it on YouTube, but it definitely means talk to somebody, and talk to someone you trust, and talk to someone who is not going to commiserate with you, but someone who is going to encourage you to walk through it and
Yep.
release that emotional trauma that you're holding in the body.
Yeah, I think it's more than just talking about it. I
Yep.
think it's the beginning of it. I think you have to find your own path of a
Yep.
way to really heal and to really acknowledge where you're holding it, where it's having an impact. And I think when I started recognizing it, when I had that very physical experience, then I started paying attention to where I was holding this tension. Because again, you cannot fake the body out.
No.
If
Right.
we will give ourselves permission to listen to how our bodies feel, and in an intimate situation, of how free are you feeling, and to understand where there's tension, there is trauma. I think that's where the trauma happens, whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual trauma. And so to seek help somewhere that someone can take you, that you're not doing, because I'm not saying you can't do it by yourself. I think it's difficult to do it by yourself. And I think because, it's about learning how to trust somebody that can keep reassuring you and holding your hand down this path that it wasn't your fault. Because as children, that's what we make everything up, because we're so egocentric out of a survival place, right? So we have to imagine everything's our fault. You hear that story about children of divorced parents, they think it's their fault. They interject themselves into that. And so I think you have to kind of have a little bit of that regression, certainly is what worked for me, to go back to that place of understanding where you were at that time, and to
Yeah.
really support and love on that child, so that you can then take your adult self and then transfer that to then nurture your own child
Inner
yourself.
child healing is so empowering.
Yeah.
I just can't even say enough of it. And I like what you said about going back and having that conversation with that inner child, that your child self, and
Mhm.
reassuring your child self that she did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Donna, I can tell something's coming up for you.
Yeah, it's just, I've done just about every kind of therapy meditation there is, from Rolfing to active meditations with Osho for years, and from hypnosis to regular therapy to tapping to EMDR, and I became a family constellation facilitator, and then I one of the things I discovered, and a Psych K facilitator, and the Psych K was the one that helped the most getting through the final parts of it, just so you guys know. Bruce Lipton talks about it a lot, and but what I found is, and when I was in ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, they said, well, there's a thing called instant confusion, and it was where all of a sudden everything would go blank and you couldn't think. I don't know about anyone else, but that would happen to me every time I was around a man that I was interested in, or there was some sexual energy. I would just go,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I would go blank. I could not
Mhm.
think. And then my brain would turn back on about 3 days later. And it's because of the fear. The frontal lobe shuts down.
Mhm.
And we're and so basically moving through that, not numbing it out with not numbing it out with drugs and stuff, because I know there's all kinds of drugs that people just want to say, oh, we don't want you to feel that feeling, so we'll drug you, and we don't feel. That doesn't really work long term. What really works is us growing through it and growing out of it. So I just want to say that the most powerful thing I found that I could work on myself, because I studied it myself, and then I would work with other facilitators, with Psych K. That was the thing that could really undo the things at a level that needed to be done. But
Well, our bodies are powerful healing
they hold it
entities,
all.
and
Yes.
Yeah.
it holds everything. I mean, we are just simply vibration in human form. So when you think about that, when you really think about that, and you realize, okay, so if I am vibration in human form, and there's something, I'm going to use the word stuck
Yeah.
in there, that's keeping me from loving my life, loving myself, loving who I am, I
Right.
owe it to myself to unstuck it, find out what that is and unstick it.
Yeah.
So, it's that going in, and I think one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves in any given moment: how are you feeling? How does that make you feel? Not in judgment, because it's really important for us, like you were talking, Donna, about when you're um, having a relationship with someone, or maybe it's dating and it's a new relationship. It's important to know who is having this relationship: your inner child, your wounded inner child, or your adult self, who is still impacted by that wounded inner child.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think that one of the things I discovered as I was finishing up writing The Anatomy of a Miracle was the very end. It struck me so hard that I had to walk around the house for a day and a half to kind of grok it. And then it took me a week to articulate it. And it was basically this. I used to think that a boundary was something we had to go back and lick my wounds and before I go out in the world again and get beat up again, or, attacked again, And that's no way to live, and that's not how it works, because it's our joy that grows us. It's our joy and our eros, our energy, our physical energy, and our psychic energy. The heart expands out to more than 16 feet, and the brain only goes out to 22 or 3 feet. The heart isn't just a pump. The new science says it. So there's all this stuff going on with the heart. But if we create our vision of what we're growing into, the vision of what we want to create in our lives, and hold it there and use that, and then we love through it, we create through it, we are enthusiastic through it, we're going to attract a lot of things. And that vision of where we're going is what screens out the stuff that is not going to be good for us.
Yeah.
The good stuff that makes us withdraw and go like that you just have to say, not dancing with you guys. Okay, next.
Exactly.
And dance with the ones that you love and that you feel wonderful with. The concept of hanging out with people that you feel wonderful with, that was a huge surprise to me. And the concept of boundary, what's a boundary? That didn't come up till I was in my 50s. Literally, I didn't understand what's a boundary.
Yeah.
So that joy and having a boundary that is your ecstasy and your vision, what you're growing into. And you're not there yet, so you don't have to blame yourself for not being it yet. You just keep growing into it by your love and your joy and that juicy part of you that wants to express.
I want to say one thing on the heels of that. You just said those were beautiful words, is that I think this is so important, again, to listen to your heart, to listen to your gut. And it's the most, I think, bold thing we can do of being unapologetic, that if people don't make us feel a certain way, and I don't mean that people make us feel, we feel a certain thing. If we don't feel empowered and joyful and safe and respected in any relationship, starting this moment, get the hell out. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why. It's there. The vibration, Nancy, you talk about, I feel the same way. If you have to listen and believe it and trust it. So go find if it's more than one person, that's not your people. That's not your tribe. There's a vast difference, and we all deserve to feel that loved and respected and supported and safe in being. It's like, this is how the three of us ended up together. We realized we were talking the same language, and we felt very quickly we could share things that were as intimate as what we're talking about today, because we realized this about ourselves from connecting real. So life is too short to show up in a way that it's like you're pretending, like just be unapologetic and say no to any place, any organization, any person that you don't feel fully loved and respected.
Even if those people are family members.
Mic drop.
Right. It doesn't matter who it is. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter who it is.
Anyone.
And it could be somebody that you can't, maybe it's a boss that you feel that way. And so maybe you can't get the hell out this moment, and yet put a plan in place to get out, know that is something. And if it's somebody that's a family person that you just can't, there's ways to create boundaries and so forth to protect yourself. But most of those relationships, we can either get the hell out or limit it greatly.
Absolutely.
Trust your loving and your joy, and that beautiful, juicy part of you that wants to express, because that's God working through you. I call it the law of blooming. You're blooming at that point. So like you said, if there's somebody that's, stomping all over the flowers, just, you don't have to not love them, and you don't get into an argument with them, because you're going to be attaching yourself to them. Just bye, be gone, and trust your joy and let it move you forward.
Yeah. And don't try to prove someone wrong or make them apologize or you did this, and because every healing starts internally with ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you heal the inside, the outside circumstances will change. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have any comments on anything that we've talked about, please leave them below. Let us know. We will get back to you. If there's anything that you'd like to share, let us know. And in the meantime, be unapologetic for who you are, because you deserve to have the best life ever.
Yeah.
No!
Ciao for now. Bye, ladies.